What if I told you that Lewis Hamilton's season wasn't derailed by a crash, but by 8 seconds of telemetry?
Lewis Hamilton's season has long been a narrative of both brilliance and frustration, marked by the highs of record-breaking achievements and the lows of moments that seem to derail his championship ambitions. Yet, the story that has recently shaken the paddock and may ultimately redefine Hamilton's 2025 campaign with Ferrari is not one of a spectacular crash or a visible on-track misjudgment. It is far more subtle, surgical, and unnervingly precise. A story about 8 seconds of telemetry data dissected by the FIA with the meticulousness of a forensic investigation. It is a story that has transformed a seemingly ordinary Grand Prix weekend into a moment of psychological, emotional, and political reckoning, exposing a level of scrutiny and enforcement in Formula One that most fans rarely see or even imagine. The shock did not come at the moment Hamilton crashed out at Zandvoort, a track known for its challenges and unforgiving corners. Onlookers might have assumed that the damage to his championship campaign was solely tied to that incident, but insiders in the paddock know that the real earthquake occurred later, in the form of an FIA decision that redefined the trajectory of his season. According to multiple sources close to the teams, the decision to impose a 5-place grid penalty for the upcoming Monza Grand Prix was not the result of a dramatic collision or a flagrant breach of protocol, but of a fraction of a moment that most spectators would never notice. The event in question took place during reconnaissance laps before the Dutch Grand Prix officially began. Hamilton passed through a double yellow flag zone, a situation where drivers are required to slow down significantly due to marshals working near the track. Normally, these moments last mere seconds and, while monitored, rarely become the center of controversy. However, in Hamilton's case, the FIA's scrutiny reached unprecedented depths. They did not merely rely on visual confirmation from race control or standard footage. They pulled comprehensive telemetry data, including throttle, traces, brake pressures, GPS positions, gear selections, and sector delta times. Every piece of measurable input was analyzed and cross-referenced to produce a detailed assessment of Hamilton's adherence to the rules. The stewards were unmoved. They meticulously compared Hamilton's lap against previous laps, isolated individual variables, and contrasted his performance with other drivers in similar situations. In doing so, they determined that while Hamilton had made an effort to slow down, it was insufficient to meet the standard. Initially, the FIA even considered a harsher 10-place penalty, but ultimately reduced it to 5 places in recognition of Hamilton's attempt to comply. While this concession might appear reasonable on the surface, the perceived inconsistency in enforcement has ignited intense debate within the F1 community. The controversy is heightened by the apparent disparity in how rules are applied across the grid. Other drivers, Max Verstappen, Lando Norris, Carlos Sainz, and Nico Hulkenberg, were investigated for similar infractions involving speed reductions during reconnaissance laps. Yet in each of these cases, the stewards concluded that the drivers had not acted unnecessarily slow, and therefore did not penalize them. This discrepancy underscores a broader question about the FIA's methodology and consistency, raising concerns about how the interpretation of telemetry data may be shifting the implicit rules of engagement in Formula One. Fans, pundits, and insiders alike have noted that the governing body seems increasingly willing to intervene with microscopic precision, wielding data as both a sword and a scalpel in ways that alter championship trajectories without the spectacle of dramatic on-track incidents. For Ferrari, the ripple effects of this decision are substantial. The team has already endured a season marked by technical failures, strategic missteps, and inconsistent performance. Monza, often considered the emotional apex of the calendar for the Scuderia, now represents a compounding challenge. A compromised starting position, the psychological burden on their lead driver, and the ever-present pressure of a fan base that demands nothing less than victory. Hamilton, already wrestling with the idiosyncrasies of the SF24, must now navigate a gauntlet of midfield competitors, weather conditions, and tire strategies, all while internalizing the implicit message delivered by the FIA. No leniency, no grace, no room for error. Hamilton's reaction to the penalty has been notable in its restraint. Unlike in some past controversies, there have been no public outbursts, no finger-pointing at race control, and no attempts to shift blame. His measured response, coupled with his admitted frustration at the outcome, underscores a maturity and focus that may prove crucial at Monza. Behind closed doors, Ferrari sources have admitted that the team did not anticipate such a detailed and forceful ruling from the FIA. The level of analysis applied to what many would consider a minor incident has stunned even the most seasoned personnel, suggesting a shift in the regulatory paradigm, where micro-level infractions are now capable of producing macro-level consequences. The broader implications extend beyond a single weekend. If Hamilton succeeds at Monza despite the penalty, it will not merely be a demonstration of racing skill, but a reaffirmation of his resilience, leadership, and adaptability. A symbolic rebirth within Ferrari, signaling that even under extreme pressure, the seven-time champion can extract performance and inspire the team. Conversely, if the penalty and subsequent challenges prove insurmountable, it could mark a critical juncture in Hamilton's Ferrari tenure, highlighting the fragility of a partnership still in its infancy and the potential long-term consequences of regulatory overreach. In either scenario, Monza is poised to serve as a crucible, a defining moment that may crystallize the trajectory of Hamilton's season and Ferrari's ambitions. The narrative, therefore, is layered and multifaceted. On one level, it is about a specific penalty, measured in seconds and grid positions, the tangible markers of competitive consequence. On another, it is a story of regulatory philosophy, the increasing influence of telemetry, and the shifting balance of power between drivers, teams, and the governing body. It is also a story of psychological warfare, the pressures of public scrutiny, and the emotional weight borne by individuals navigating high-stakes environments. Hamilton's challenge at Monza embodies all of these elements simultaneously. A confluence of technical mastery, strategic acumen, and psychological endurance. What makes this saga particularly compelling is its subtlety. The moment that triggered the penalty was fleeting, lasting barely the span of a few heartbeats. To the casual observer, it would have been virtually imperceptible. Yet it has prompted a chain reaction of consequences that resonate across the championship, shaping team strategy, driver mentality, and even fan perception. The story challenges conventional notions of what constitutes a race-defining incident and exposes the extent to which modern Formula One is governed not only by speed and skill, but by data, analysis, and interpretation. In many ways, the situation embodies the paradox of contemporary racing. Technology and data provide clarity, objectivity, and precision, yet they also introduce new forms of ambiguity, dispute, and contention. The FIA's reliance on telemetry and detailed analysis can identify micro-level transgressions with scientific certainty, but it cannot capture intention, context, or the dynamic judgment calls that define racing at its highest level. Hamilton's penalty, therefore, is emblematic of the tensions inherent in the sport, the intersection of human skill and machine precision, the clash between fairness and interpretation, and the relentless pressure to perform under an increasingly microscopic lens. The stakes for Monza are immense. Ferrari faces a home crowd hungry for victory, a championship campaign that remains within reach, and a lead driver navigating both a complex car and an unprecedented regulatory environment. Hamilton's ability to rise above the penalty, assert his authority on track, and lead Ferrari to success will determine whether this incident becomes a footnote or a defining chapter. It will also serve as a litmus test for the broader evolution of Formula One governance, illustrating how far the FIA is willing to push in the name of enforcement and how teams and drivers must adapt to an era of extreme precision and relentless scrutiny. Ultimately, this story is not merely about grid positions, lap times, or penalties. It is about identity, pride, and legacy. Hamilton's journey with Ferrari has been anticipated as a historic partnership, one capable of rewriting narratives in the sport's annals. Yet the path has proven treacherous, fraught with both predictable mechanical challenges and unforeseen regulatory pressures. Monza offers the possibility of redemption, of reaffirmation, and of the kind of dramatic triumph that can transform adversity into legend. Conversely, it also represents the fragile balance of modern Formula One, where a few seconds of telemetry, interpreted in a precise but unyielding manner, can reshape careers, redefine championship outcomes, and alter the trajectory of even the most storied partnerships. In the end, what has transpired at Zandvoort, and now looms over Monza, is emblematic of the modern era of Formula One. It is a narrative where the invisible becomes decisive, where telemetry and data wield authority alongside raw talent, and where every moment, no matter how brief, can carry monumental consequences. Hamilton's penalty, while rooted in 8 seconds of a seemingly minor infraction, has transformed the landscape of F